Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we are back.
We are back.
I am Jason Kreidman.
I am Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads. Again, another episode of exciting information, delivering it to you live. I don't know why. All of a sudden I had some burst of energy.
Yeah, let's do this.
I had to get this out. Oh, it's only late at night, so no big deal. I've been up since 4:40.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm very tired, but I have some energy somehow.
You're a natural. You get up early naturally, don't you?
No.
You don't?
I hate it. But it's the only time when it's quiet and I can exercise.
Gotcha.
No, I'd say I'm okay typically in the morning. Once I'm up, I'm up, and usually I'm motivated enough to do it.
Yeah.
Just because I'm wired that way.
Yeah.
It's
I do the opposite. I like go to bed really late because it's really quiet.
Yeah.
So I tend to stay up until I'm.
A lot of people
tired,
do that. Yeah.
And then I'll just knock out.
They get their work done
hours.
when everyone's asleep or whatever. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't know why I pick the morning.
No. I think you are among many people that do it.
My wife's the same.
Yeah.
So we just happen to
That's good.
be the same that way.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
It'd be a little hard if it was opposite. So when you have one child, that in itself has its own obstacles and difficulties.
Sure.
When you add a second child, there's this phenomenon. At least I didn't use the fake word. There is this thing called sibling rivalry.
Sure.
Basically, it's kids that are brothers and sisters that just arguing. That's the way that
Yeah.
It's a fancy word for arguing.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine in houses where there's a ton of kids, especially if they're close in age or whatever.
Litter of kids.
And I have two, so
You have two siblings.
who get along wonderfully.
Are
but
you the
they're-
youngest of the?
Me and
Yeah.
No, I'm one of three.
I was gonna say, because how many siblings do you have?
I have two older sisters.
Two older.
Yeah, I always say older, but yeah, and they are older, but 4 and 5 years older than me.
Yeah, okay.
So
And then you have now two kids.
two kids, and they're
discussed.
almost 2 years apart.
And they've been on the show.
They have been on the show.
Yeah.
It was very exciting.
Yeah,
I
that was
really
fun.
enjoyed it. And it's funny because those were because my wife shared it. And it's the most shared and commented episode we've ever had. So I'm like, wait a second.
What about all the gems I was giving you before?
Yeah, nobody cares about me. It's just my kids. No, they did great. And so sibling rivalry is a very common topic. It's just talking, and basically a lot of this is from the parenting standpoint of how do I deal with this?
Right.
I'm not trying to make so much about the meaning of it because it's just, kids are going to fight and they're going to argue and such. It's basically how to keep your own sanity, during that. And there's all different degrees, there's kids that just constantly fighting. I'm sure too, maybe ones of the same sex fight more. I don't know. Two brothers are just going at it versus two sisters are going at it.
Sure.
I witnessed, my sisters when they were young. They'd fight over clothes and that kind of stuff. Because there's also a space gap, I didn't fight as much with my sisters.
Right.
Maybe just because I was that much younger.
Maybe they're a little more protective of you than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or they just pushed you down.
Yeah, they may have just been kicking me and I didn't
You didn't notice.
I was tripped and I didn't notice who did it. That's why my teeth stuck out. I definitely got teased.
Oh.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable.
But I don't remember being really, bad fighting, if you will. So, Dr. Sears, and Dr. Sears, it's Dr. Bill and Martha Sears, who are very famous in the sort of parenting world. They've written 40 plus pediatric books.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very famous. Been on every TV show, everything. They have AskDrSears.com. It's a great resource, all kinds of stuff. So they had an article about tips to stop sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. So we'll put a link to there.
Cool.
So one of the things, this is number one, is make friends before birth. So some of these initial ones we're going to talk about is when there's a new baby coming.
Sure.
So, and we actually did this from advice that we had, is, when you have a new child coming, you want to get the other child comfortable with it and excited about it versus it being competition.
Sure.
And so, hey, and you've got this baby sister or brother, and this is going to be wonderful, and you're going to be to take care of them and help and all this stuff without them thinking like they're going to lose your attention.
Yeah.
And doing that. So you got to make friends before birth. And number two, one of the ways you can do that is you make the older sibling feel important. Mm-hmm. So you're going to talk to them about how awesome it is to be an older brother or sister, all kinds of stuff like that. You give them jobs, you give them responsibility, and they feel special. And so that's something that you're going to want to do.
A friend of mine in a recent Facebook post said that her currently only child just got promoted to Big Brother. And I thought that was a really cute way to say it.
Awesome. Very.
The kids all on the side. I've been promoted.
Yeah.
It was cute.
Yeah. So the third thing is timeshare, which basically, making sure that you are spending time with both children. That's a child who is an only child doesn't understand that. So when all of a sudden another thing comes in and occupies time, that can be tough. So, and there's all kinds of stories I've heard of the older sibling being mean to the younger one. I mean, I've heard great stories too. We were really lucky, I guess, or maybe we set it up correctly, but our son was wonderful to our daughter as a baby, and he was so gentle with her and just loved having a little baby sister. And that continues now. Of course, things change a little bit, but dressing up together and just everything was buddy. They were best friends. And I think part of that too. My wife came from she's very close with her brother, and even in age, and so they were best of friends, everything together, and so I think that she saw how important that was. And so it was from the get-go, my wife made a tremendous amount of effort of making sure that they were getting along. It was very conscious. So I think that was important too. Number 4, stay positive. So I think it's important to be positive about it, using positive statements. Those are kinds of things. There's a lot of maybe use of the word special. That's a common thing.
Right.
This is very special.
Sure.
And so you just gotta be very, very sensitive to that, especially to the older sibling. Number 5, begin the day in harmony. So that could mean a special time for the older child. I mean, you can see there's a pattern here. It's giving the older child a little bit more attention than you think you would.
Right, because the younger one's going to naturally get it.
Right.
By virtue of being the younger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, maybe you're holding them, creating a bonding moment in the morning where they all hug together. I mean, whatever it is, you're just kind of starting off the day fresh.
Sure.
Number 6 is raise sensitive siblings. Mm-hmm. So, in the way that you do that, there's different kinds of titles or themes that you can use, and I'll give you an example. So, the sibling in charge. So the older sibling, gets that supervised responsibility of the younger one. That gives them, the feeling of a little bit of authority and maybe feeling special with that. The other one's a sibling as a comforter. Mm. So you can see it's hard. I think it's sometimes with all these things, it's hard for the older child. There's a lot of expectations that are put on the older child, and to do that. But as a result, too, what this is also saying is you've got to give them a little bit of extra attention. Sure. Because they're going to feel all of a sudden it went from 100% to maybe less than 50.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
So they're the comforter. So when somebody gets hurt, the older child is there to comfort them. And and as the child grows, both of these can switch. The child who is, if your brother or sister or sibling is hurt, you're making sure that you're comforting them and teaching them that. The other one's as a minister. So I think it's kind of like comforter, but it's more, rather than physically hurt, it's more of mentally or emotionally hurt. Mm-hmm. So kind of playing that role and just, making sure that they're sensitive to that. The other one is teacher. our son was great with this, where, our daughter wouldn't have been potty trained as quick if it wasn't for our son.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he was like, "Oh, come on, Farron, let's go to the bathroom."
Yeah.
He was very instrumental in teaching her how to do
That's
stuff.
great.
Yeah, I mean, even now, like he's, because he's reading a lot, and so he's starting to do like some reading where he reads to her.
Yeah.
And that helps her and him.
Sure. Yeah.
So as a teacher, that's a really cool thing. And as the sibling, like they get to feel proud of that.
Yeah.
Like, well, I taught him how to do it. Or,
Yeah. I know a lot of people with large families that their older siblings are the ones that primarily raise them in a lot of ways. When
Yeah.
they have like a lot of kids, because there's so much to manage just for the parents alone that it's like you got to rely on your older siblings.
Right. Right. You want to turn that off? Sorry. What happened?
The batteries aren't on.
Oh.
I don't believe it survived it. I think it just kind of ran out.
So the next one related to that is the siblings as co-workers.
Yeah.
So kind of them working together, like maybe to clean together. That we do that a lot.
Sure.
It's like, hey, clean together, and of course that's not mine. I cleaned what was mine.
Yeah.
So you're probably get some of that. The other is as co-sleepers. My children will occasionally do that. They'll have a sleepover in each other because they have separate rooms.
Yeah.
They don't do it as much, but they still occasionally will. And so that's something that's fun to do.
Do they bring their respective friends over at the same time, or
Sometimes,
Okay.
but sometimes before, and they haven't done it as much recently. As they just had their own sleepover.
Oh, okay.
So just them.
Just them.
Yeah, hey, come into my room, or you come into my room.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's just it's the idea that they kind of feel safe.
Yeah.
With each other.
Sure.
That's something. And in many cases, a lot of siblings, especially if they're close in age, or twins or something, will have the same room.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's something.
Yeah.
And then the other one's as an entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, maybe they like to be funny or like
Do a
to
little
sing,
vaudeville.
dance. Yeah, I mean, and just kind of humoring and entertaining the toddler or
Yeah.
a baby or something like that, and making funny faces and voices, whatever.
Mhm.
So that could work. So the next tip, number 7, set limits. So as much as this is all fun and games and everything's wonderful, you do have to set limits and set boundaries that like things aren't okay. And that's kind of a given. But
No, it makes sense.
making sure it's like that's not how we treat each other. This is not what we do, and explaining this is what we do. This is how we do it. Another one, number 8, hold family meetings. That's a good one where the kids then feel like they can express themselves. They get to share maybe what they're feeling or what they're thinking, and that gives them the chance to vent in a way, because they're going to want to do that.
Right.
So having a family meeting sometimes allows that maybe that's the time where you do that. It's kind of setting like that's the time and place to talk about that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's not when we're getting ready for school.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So giving them that outlet in order to do that. Humor is the best medicine. This is number 9. And just kind of being playful, entertain, like the other one, entertaining each other, and just sort of being funny and light. That can kind of help it, and I think we as parents can get into that too, where things don't have to be so serious.
For sure.
Let's see. Number 10, foster a team spirit. We definitely do this as a family where, we kind of say like we're all in this together, and so that's something whether we are cleaning, whether we're making food, whether we're doing whatever, it's like I help you, you help me, we each all help each other. It's the idea that's like, when I'm making dinner, I'm not just making it for myself.
Right.
Like I'm making it for everybody.
Yeah.
My wife's making it for everybody. So as far as cleaning up, where they think, oh, well, I'm cleaning up my stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't make dinner just for me, so.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't go over very very well. Here's one that we're familiar with. Number 11, promote empathy. So obviously talking to your kids, whether it's like, the golden rule, do unto others, or putting yourself in their spot, of kind of explaining them, that philosophy and that thing. So you have to translate that to them in a way that makes sense, for a kid. And I don't think that that's easy to do when they're really little. I mean, but you kind of want to say like, hey, if you were in your sister's shoes, how would that feel? And I think we do kind of say it like that. Like, what if that happened to you?
Right.
How would you feel about that? So, promoting empathy is always good.
Sure.
Promoting gender sensitivity. Now, this one is very interesting, and I'm going to maybe expand on it a little bit. One of the things we do in our house, I think it's very important, is showing how they are treated, like the sibling is treated, because that's how their friends will treat them. So in other words, boy, girl, girl, boy, it is important for sure. There's those aspects. But as an example, like my son being very respectful of my daughter as a girl, in whatever way, whether it's in a physical aspect, all kinds of things. It's just being respectful, and as a result of that, his friends seeing that will be respectful to her as well. And I think I think just the way that it is, it happens a little bit more from he's older than to the daughter, versus the other way around. But even so too, of her, I think in the way that she's treating him, that her friends are going to see that also.
Sure.
And so that's a really, really important thing. And so I think it's just, I'm broadening it, not even just gender sensitivity, but it is where I think, like even his friends seeing girls in a certain way and going, oh, well, Kason, treats his sister that way, and that's the respectful way to do that.
Sure.
Kind of emulating that and showing that and how important that is.
Yeah.
So I think it's, for sort of the internal feeling good, if you will, as a person, it's like you gotta teach that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, number 13, ignore smallies and address biggies. Biggie Smalls.
Biggie Smalls.
Yeah, we could throw a little song out there. No, I think what that means is allowing the children to handle many of the smaller situations themselves.
Right.
In fact, we
Self-reliance.
we had a situation. We had a ton of kids over at our house, and literally, like they're outside playing, and I think 3 or 4 kids came in telling us that another one of the children were doing something wrong. It wasn't even our kids that came inside. It was the other kids, because our children one of them was involved with this.
Yeah.
And so my immediate response, and it was funny because my wife said the exact same thing, is, okay, what are you telling us for? Like, what, did you talk to them about this?
Yeah.
Like, you guys can solve it. You guys can totally solve it. And they're like, oh, okay. And they ran back out, did it. And it was funny because my wife and I just had the exact same philosophy. It's like, this isn't our problem to solve.
Go regulate.
You guys go figure it out.
Yeah.
You don't need to bring that stuff to me. That was not a serious situation.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's a very, very important thing, even just between the siblings, of allowing them to work it out and you promoting that. So that's not being quiet all the time.
Sure.
It can even be where you may even step in a little bit and just go, hey, I think maybe you guys need to figure that out.
Yeah.
That alone, if it needs some like kind of pushing a little bit.
Sure.
That's a big one in our house.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm not solving this for you.
Right.
Like you got to figure this one out.
Yeah.
And if they're really young, then you can kind of move that along and help them along.
Coach them a little bit.
But yeah, I mean, it's just and the other thing too with this, and I think we'll touch on it maybe a little bit later, is that there's usually a victim and what's the opposite of victim?
Oppressor.
Yeah, I mean, whereas, and this is very, very common. A situation happens, and they say, blah 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 is hitting me.
Yeah.
Or just pinching me or took my whatever, or all these things. And we immediately take what that kid said and get upset at the child who did it, or that they said did it, versus reprimanding the child who told and saying like, why are you telling me this? What and what did you want me to do?
Right.
I've said it before, and it's funny because they'll be like, well, get them in trouble, or they should be punished. Like, really? That's what you want? Because you're not going to be able to play with them right now if that's what I do.
Yeah.
And do you think that's really going to fix it? They're like, no. It's like, well, then what are you coming to me for? You guys can handle this. If it's a small situation.
Yeah. Right.
But making that often, we always do that, and parents making the victim, so that when the one child who is like, he's doing this, and we go, stop doing that, and you continue that where they become this victim, who can, yell and scream or whine and get their way.
And that's the thing; they almost manipulate the situation by pulling your strings.
Yeah.
But
and I have a tendency to go to the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So whoever yells.
Yeah.
Or whines or tells is usually the one that is, that we talk to.
Yeah, right.
Or we'll say, hey, what happened? Or why?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have to become the judge, but.
You're right.
So the other one, number 14, children do not have to be treated equally. Now, this is interesting. They will perceive their own sense of fairness. So but all kids are individuals, and so treated fairly, that's like, it's funny, because you even think that you're treating them fairly, and they don't see it that way.
Right.
So most of the time you can't win. That's...
and by virtue of age and gender or any other things, unless they're identical twins, and even then, that person's on my left and I happen to be left-handed, might be unfair, right? So it's just... kind of works that way. A lot of people just kind of, I think it's just by virtue of you being who you are as an individual.
Right.
It's not always going to be fair in your favor. And
yeah.
You go the reverse.
Yeah, there are all kinds of situations, whether it's like sleep time. Well, this child's older.
Yeah.
This child's younger. Or you have something tomorrow and you need to get more sleep. Or, why? It's so funny. It's down to like M&Ms. He got 6 M&Ms, she got 4 M&Ms, it's like, they'll count.
Yeah.
They'll literally count. So the fairest thing ever is to allow one child to split and the other one to choose.
Oh, okay.
So that works. I learned that one. So let's say they have a muffin or something. Like, all right, who wants to split it?
Yeah.
And they'll argue because the other one, they know they can't split it perfect.
Yeah.
So they'll want the other one to split it, and then the other person gets to choose.
Okay.
So it's like, you're not involved. You don't split it and then figure out here you give it. Like, that one's bigger, that one's smaller. You love my kid voice.
I'm sure they appreciate it too.
Oh, they love it. Number 15, every child is a favorite. So that's funny because I always say, like, you're my favorite son, you're my favorite daughter.
Right. Makes sense.
Which I think I said, it was funny, people had asked for my sisters and I, who do you think mom loved the most?
People have asked that?
Yeah, well, we said it internally, because as siblings, he's like, and all of us said ourselves. Which, that's the great job of a parent.
Right.
That each one of them said, no, she loved me the most.
Yeah, right.
No, absolutely, she loved me the most.
She goes, you're all right.
You're right. And that's what's funny. And so we all would argue that. You can say things without being, I say, well, who do you love more? And you say, well, it's totally different. You're my firstborn child versus she's my first girl, or whatever. Right. Everybody's got their special thing that they have. So you got to be careful, especially when kids will ask that question. And you got to be careful as a parent not to ask that either, because you don't want to know the answer.
Right.
Although I think I said growing up, or when they were first younger, you kind of just accepted that they liked one parent better than the other.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they spend more time with them.
Yeah.
But now,
exactly.
Let's have that context now. No.
Yeah. 8 years later.
Yeah, no.
Now who's boss?
Number 16, minimize comparisons. This is a tough one too. because especially when you have your first child, you have this baseline, and then you start comparing the second child to that baseline all the time. Well, this one walked when he was this age, or she read when she was this age, or she didn't do solid food until she was, you know what I mean? Like, you just have all these dumb comparisons, but that's all you have. Like, because if you don't on your first child, then you're compared to everybody else who has kids.
Right.
So when you have a second child, you've got to be careful not to do that. And I can tell you, it's very hard too, because you forget that they're of different age. So like with my kids being 2 years apart, there's a big difference between a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. Yet they are often, I'd say more times than not, treated the same.
Yeah.
You know, so the expectations on the younger child is the same as the older, and it's not fair. It really isn't fair, like when you think about it.
Yeah.
You know, like whether it's cleaning or helping around the house or whatever. So you have to be mindful of that to say, like, okay, well, no, that's the older child, and they have this responsibility, and then the younger child, and oftentimes, depending on how close they are, a year or two, we just don't do that. You know, it's like, oh, go clean your room. Why didn't you clean your room? You know, it's like they're still sitting there like staring at the ceiling, and you're like, oh, that's right, they're younger. Like that's gonna take longer.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, your brother cleaned his room and he's done. Why aren't you done? You know, like, I mean, it's just, I'm thinking about this as I'm like talking through it. I'm like, it's so true. You treat the children differently, and you don't want to, and you don't mean to. It's just innate. Like, you kind of do it that way.
Yeah.
So that's why I think too, we think when we have, you know, multiple kids that like we question like, well, they came from the same place and they're in the same environment. It's like, but it's not.
It's not.
It's not the same.
It's a different perspective.
It's
Everything's
totally
different. Yeah.
Do you remember a lot of sibling rivalry?
No, because my siblings I did not grow up with. I had a half brother and a half sister, both of which I didn't grow up in the same house with.
Okay.
Except my half sister. I was thinking about this because you mentioned something about like living up to expectations that, you know, because one's on one side, the other one's on the other side. But as a kid, I grew up an only child up until I was 16 and a half.
Okay.
And then my little sister was born. By then, I worked out any quote-unquote issues that I don't care. I want to get out of the house anyway.
Right.
Like, yeah, okay. And my mom actually tried to do that. Like, oh, you know, it's not, things aren't going to change. I was like, yes, they are. It's fine. I want them to change. Pay attention to the baby. I'm going to take the car.
Right. Oh, that's a totally different.
Whole different. Yeah, way.
16 years apart.
It's a huge generation gap. And so I never had that. Because
you didn't have that connection either.
Right, that's the other thing I missed out on, the whole connection you have with someone who's close to your age, and you can kind of get along and have that kind of either rivalry or camaraderie at the same time. So so I did miss out that part of it, but my mom didn't have to deal with us battling.
Right. One less thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Number 17, you referee quarrels. So there is a time to step in. You know, to especially if you feel like, I don't know, just it warrants it.
Sure.
You know, where you can see that there's something that, you know, whether somebody's in danger or they're going to hurt something or you're stopping a fight. Yeah. It says, it's funny, siblings who are allowed to fight as kids are more likely to fight as adults. So that's interesting because I remember growing up, and you know, there was a neighbor who's the child that I was friends with, and the parent, the child got in squabbles with some of the other kids, and the parent staged a fight, literally where he wanted his son to fight another kid. And I'm thinking about this, like as I'm talking, and I'm thinking about this now, going, that is insane.
That is.
I mean, he had a couple screws loose.
Okay.
The parent.
Okay.
And now that I'm looking back.
Yeah, yeah.
But literally it's like, hey, you guys want to fight? Okay, we're going to fight this one out. Like literally like put on gloves and they're going to, I don't even remember if there was gloves
they
or not.
did like
I don't even remember.
boxing?
I think, I don't even remember if there was gloves, but I remember them fighting.
Yeah.
And like toe to toe, they're going to go at it. And of course, the father had taught his son how to fight.
So, yeah.
You know, and the other kid was just probably a tough punk or something. I don't remember. But I do remember like thinking, this is weird. That like the dad is like helping and agreeing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, granted, I don't know the whole story. So maybe he was getting picked on, you know, I don't know. But that would be weird. You know, if your son's getting picked on and say, okay, well then let's create a fight.
Yeah, let's how old are the kids?
I want to say we were elementary school, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just strange.
Yeah, it is a little weird.
But yeah, the father was a little strange. I remember my parents saying that. Like, oh, this neighbor's a little weird. So if any neighbors are listening, this is when I grew up, and I don't think they're listening right now. So everyone's like, was that me?
Yeah, right.
So when in doubt, this is number 18, when in doubt, intervene. Yeah, so if you're not sure, like I said, they're going to fight or something's going to happen, you're just not sure about it, or you feel like the relationship could get worse or the situation's going to get worse, you got to step in.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you need to solve it, but you can intervene. And I think that's kind of even what I said, it's like where you can say, well, how are we going to solve it? I mean, I love to ask questions now. I'm learning that, where it's like, so what do you guys think? Like, you don't want this, and you like this, or you don't, what do you think? How do you think we can solve this? Let them come up with it. I don't need to be the one to solve it. And most of the time they're pretty smart. They'll come up with the solution.
Yeah.
Like, well, he did this, and she did this. Well, okay, so what do you think we should do? Well, we could split it. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I mean, and they come up with these solutions. They're very smart.
Yeah.
Very bright.
Yeah.
Number 19, listen to both sides. That's an interesting one too. Abusing the other one's not going to be tolerated, obviously, but you do have to hear both sides of the equation. And like I said, oftentimes there's one side, the second side, and then the truth.
Sure.
It's like there's something in the middle, and a lot of times I always take the stance like, I don't care. Like, I don't care who did it or what was done. And in fact, I think I told that story about my sister. My sister's got in trouble, and my mom, I think she like smacked both of them or something, and she's like, I didn't do it. She's like, yeah, well, I know you're gonna, both of you will do it at some point, or something, like something to that effect. Like, at some point you're gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what, like, for the future.
Preemptive.
Right.
When I don't get you, you'll think about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to learn to get along, so just don't argue, and at some point you guys are gonna both be at fault. So, it's like in the military where somebody does something and the whole group has to do the push-ups.
Everyone has to do push-ups.
So I hear. And then the last thing, siblings are forever. And I think that is and this is what my wife was really good about, is, the bond and how important that bond is, and just making sure that you're fostering that.
Sure.
And, understanding it's like, hey, this is your brother or sister, and you're going to be there for each other for life. And like, just that importance of that. You don't want to make it pressure, but you do want to, emphasize how important that is.
Yeah.
And I think that's one to grow on. So that's sibling rivalry and some tips for that. Hopefully we learned something.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to go home and implement some of these things now.
They call your sisters up and apologize?
No. I'm hoping they're going to apologize.
Yeah, or maybe they should give you one.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to get in touch with us, what should they do?
Podcast at dudesToDads.com. Go to Twitter at dudesToDads. Go to Facebook at dudesToDads.com. And especially go to iTunes and Stitcher and leave reviews. We want those reviews. We'd love to have some feedback on the show. Subscribe to the show. And definitely keep it really kind of helps share with the community on iTunes.
And YouTube.
YouTube
it didn't take all the way till 2019 to get our videos.
We actually have videos up now.
And we've just gotten a huge new crop of videos that are being prepped.
Yes.
And going to be online soon.
So we should have a good chunk of our episodes are going to be starting to be recorded.
I hope so.
Video-wise. So.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Just because we've got nothing else to do.
Right. You don't have regular jobs.
Or families, or people, or anything. So, yeah, nothing going on. So with that, thank you, Alan. As always, it's time to go to sleep.
I think so.
I'm gonna crash as we had that talk about difficulty sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. This will not be one of those days.
Nah. So with that, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Take care.